Is everybody's blood boiling yet from reviewing the quotes of the year for 2024? Well, if it wasn't so far, we're going to get you boiling even better just as soon as we all get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show on the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host Dave Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, and a BBWAA member since 2012, and now a two-time Baseball Hall of Fame voter. You can find me at Answer Dave Brown on Twitter or on Blue Sky, just Answer Dave. There's no at, although maybe there is somehow. I don't know how it works. And across from cyberspace is Brandon Warren. He ain't no two-timing dude. He's across from me in cyberspace, though, and he's a Twins watcher for 30 years who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you know some ball. And do it with him on Twitter at Brandon_Warren or on Blue Sky, where he's known simply as Warren. Just ask around. You'll find him. So we can't say that we didn't warn you about today's show. Isn't that right, Brandon?
If you're not mad after the first episode, your blood will be boiling with this one.
We're talking about the quotes of the year as collected and collated in the Twins universe by Dan Hayes of The Athletic. What were the quotes of the year? The first 5 quotes of the year. There's 10 total. We've got the last 5 here, including the quote of the year. But the first 5. All they're going to find in these veins is ice cream, bro. Royce Lewis talking about looking for drug testing information. And then a long quote from Carlos Correa about how I don't just want to be a body on the field. I want to be able to perform to the best of my abilities like I've done this first half. Carlos Correa. Eventually, we'll have to switch the sausage out in order to avoid the health department knocking down our door. Rocco doesn't want another epidemic. That's Ryan Jeffers talking about the famed rally sausage that got the Twins only so far in 2024. It's the most challenging rehab I've ever had. I'm waiting for the call. This is more anticipation than my debut call. I'm waiting for the call just to go back out there and play. Royce Lewis talking about the latest rehab and maybe perhaps the one that he has planned for next week. And then, without question, the television situation is having an impact on our business. But beyond that, we're also just trying to right-size our business. Joe Polad talking about the cheap Twins. And before we get to the final 5, Brandon, I want to know, who is sponsoring this fine episode of Locked On?
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. If you're watching on YouTube, it's also right beneath us on the screen here, so check that out. FanDuel.com.
Nothing else is beneath us, though. So we're just going to dive in here.
Accurate.
Part 2 of the quotes of the year from 2024, including the quote of the year, the biggest quote that says it all. We'll get to that later in the show. This is how I want to start part 2, Brandon. It's kind of a fun thing from Thad Levine, no longer with us, in terms of the organization.
Yikes.
I kind of liken myself to Mary Poppins, which is a great lead. The kids know how to clean up their rooms and take their medicine. They don't need someone singing in the background to do it. Levine said that when he announced that he was leaving the Twins to pursue other opportunities. Derek Falvey tended to be, especially in more recent times, the face of the organization, basically. I mean, Dave St. Peter for some things. The Polads when we need them, I guess. What was Thad Levine like to deal with, and what are the Twins? What does his quote mean as far as what the Twins are going to have for themselves going forward?
I thought he was an exceptional human being to deal with, and the standard for me has been set high with Terry Ryan, who would sit with us before games. Like if it was a 7:10, we'd get him about 6:30 in the media lunchroom downstairs at Target Field, not far from the Champions Club and the Twins clubhouse. So the bar was set pretty high, and while Thad Levine was not that accessible, he was very accessible otherwise. And Derek Falvey, all the same. I've had a couple different email chains with both of those two, and they've been nothing but wonderful to deal with. Thad Levine, I have no doubt whatever he does next is going to do tremendous work, whether it's in or out of sports, and wish him well, because he was an exceptional human being to deal with. And I think this too is just like, he's just I think he believes, and he's right, even despite a tough season, he's left the organization in better shape than he found it. Now, also too, I think it would have been funny if he had like a Freudian slip and said Mary Popkins.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I like that. Jeremy Zoll is the new GM, and that's who Levine was referring to when he said, that they don't need babysitters anymore. That's basically what he's saying about the people who are replacing him within the organization. Everyone's responsibilities are overlapping, and that's kind of led him to looking for a new place where maybe he could exert some more influence. It is a good sign in a sense when you are with an organization for a long time and the people around you grow and you allow them to grow and you think they know what they're doing and it's time to kind of let them fly. So he sort of, I don't want to say made himself obsolete, but you professionally at some point you look for where the challenges are. And the Twins organization, top to bottom, almost the top, it's built itself up nicely in terms of minor league system, in terms of a coaching system, and how they go about things in the clubhouse. I know people have their complaints, and maybe some of them are valid, but I think the Twins, generally speaking, are run very well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the influence of Levine. So it's while it's great that the newer generations are ready to assume bigger responsibilities without him looking over their shoulder. We'll see what kind of transition this is to. Falvey's got Dave St. Peter type roles here. I mean, the TV deal is set. So, but again, this is all also subject to, well, what's the new ownership going to want from its organization? I would imagine that they'll want to have as much continuity as possible. I think that's what we're going to see when it comes time for whomever to buy the team. Hopefully, it's the people that we've been thinking about, the owners of the Phoenix Suns, that they keep most of what is in place for the Twins, and that will ensure a smooth and quick transition back up to the top of the league. I think
the best thing you can say for the Twins is they've gone from a team looking to grab talent from smart organizations to being one of those teams. Tyler Smarslock getting pulled from AAA St. Paul to be a coach on a big league roster, and Tanner Swanson a few years ago becoming the Yankees catching coach. Now the Twins started out hiring Josh Kalk from the Rays, and Jeremy Zoll came over from the Dodgers. In fact, I think there was a shot that he could have had the job in LA if they knew that Gabe Kapler was leaving to be the manager of the Giants back at that time. And so to go from a team poaching, and I don't say that derisively, to a team being poached, I think that's a good place to be. And I think that's part of where Thad's coming from too, is like, we've got this organization now where teams, and again, I know the season was not good, but the process, what they're doing outside of these budgetary constraints that are outside of the front office's control, it's all positive. And so that's a good place to be as an organization. And the word they've always used, dating back to the beginning, some 9 years ago, was collaborative. and everything they want is to be collaborative. It's kind of like a checks and balances system where there's overlap in jobs, and the continuity there does allow for someone to be hired away, or in Levine's case, leave, and the front office, the organization, to not experience a significant hiccup.
So before we get to the next four quotes, let's take our first break, and then we'll talk more about the other things that were said that Dan Hayes thinks encapsulates the 2024 season for the Twins, and we'll get to that right after this message.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy, and one of my favorite memories was attending a concert just this last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable at US Bank Stadium when I saw Metallica. Mammoth open for them. It was incredible. Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming Timberwolves game using the Gametime app. With Gametime Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before I bought. Plus, the super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time.
So we are 6 quotes into the quotes of the year as collected and collated by Dan Hayes of The Athletic. Most recently, I kind of liken myself to Mary Poppins, said Thad Levine as he was on his way out. So not long after this or around this time, things started to go bad for the Twins. There was some optimism with the sausage in the first half, and Carlos Correa being on the field, and Byron Buxton being on the field, and Royce Lewis hitting a home run on opening day. And it was everything was sunshine and rainbows for about an hour. And then it got a little rocky, and it got really rocky in the second half. And this led Ryan Jeffers to say, "It sucks. We had every opportunity put in front of us to win that baseball game. Our season is on the line, and we weren't able to execute to get that run across. It's a really," they took the word out, but he said shitty feeling, Ryan Jeffers. Is it all right that I said that?
We're gonna roll with it. Sorry,
PG-13. It's PG-13. Sorry. Well, he said the S word. So, and you know, that could have been after a number of games,
about 30 of them.
right? So, but it's a good indicator of just how the season unraveled for the Twins, and but also a sense of, oh, we're not going to pull out of this dive, are we? It's one of the times where, you know, the players, they try to be optimistic even during the down times, because they know how much from a mental standpoint, negative thoughts and feelings and occurrences can just kind of swallow you. And in baseball, so they try and be as positive as possible. But I think this quote is an indicator of that. The Twins, it's not that they're powerless, but they are maybe overpowered by the other teams, by circumstances, by who knows what. It's kind of a sign to me that, oh, we're not getting past this. We're not going to have, this team's not going to be a playoff team. Amazingly, that's sort of what I read from it.
Yeah, one of my theories is that in whatever, I don't know what the number is, probably 5 to 8 games every year will break your brain as a fan. You know, just give up a 5-run lead in the 9th, or base running blunder. You know, there are a bunch of them. In this case, there were more, I think, than would be ordinarily allotted. So with that said, I think that also too, the Corey Provis on the air when I think Jeffers got doubled off second. That can't happen. That can't happen in the last or second to last series.
Was that Jeffers or was it Carlos Santana? Or was it all of them?
Maybe Jeffers was hitting and Santana was on base. I thought Jeffers was part of that. And either way, I mean, it still kind of dovetails nicely with Jeffers' quote here about how they had a chance to win and didn't. Yeah, I think that it's very, very true that you could feel the frustration down the stretch. And if you don't think these players are frustrated, if you as a fan are frustrated, these players are frustrated 4, 5, 6, 10 times more than we are.
Along those lines, here's another quote from an anonymous person, a team source on the Twins' lack of activity at the trade deadline. I'll ask you if you have thoughts on who this is who's talking. I think maybe we can tell from the text. We've got a really good team, and we've done a pretty good job to this point. But when you look around to see other teams make, maybe they weren't even impact moves, just something that pumps a little life into the clubhouse, it's kind of deflating. So that's trade deadline time around August 1st about the Twins not making any moves, which they still haven't really done. Kind of funny enough. Who do you think said that? Is that Correa, do you think? Is it Rocco?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. Here's the deal. I've heard like so many different ways of framing it. Like, do you ride the ones who got you there because, adding players, does that shake up clubhouse chemistry, or does it say you weren't good enough or whatever because players in and players out? If you add somebody, you have to ship somebody either back to St. Paul, DFA, whatever. And there's two schools of thought. I mean, there's a Kirby Puckett one back in, I think, the early 90s, or maybe it was, I don't think it was the late 80s, because he was more of a leader in the early 90s, where he was ticked off that they traded some guys and the team wasn't really in contention, I don't think. And then in whatever year they laundered Jaime Garcia, 17, I think, they let him make one start and then flipped him. There was frustration there too. Like, we're kind of in the mix, but you trade Brandon Kinsler and you get a guy who never makes it to the major leagues from the Nationals. So I don't know. I think though that in this case, I think you're probably talking about a player. It doesn't sound to me. I just can't see Rocco saying that.
Right. Even off the record, I think he's going to be positive. Like, he can't really that's a player, I think, because Rocco is still going to be in a position where, if it is deflating, I've got to inflate and keep the guys up.
I don't think Rocco would say even this off the record. And I think if he did, he'd say, please, 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 just don't publish it. I don't want any chance that this comes back to me.
And it wasn't, I agree. So we've got that. And then things kind of devolved from there into quote number 9. I've never experienced the frustration, the anger, the disappointment, and the embarrassment that I have over the last 5 to 6 weeks. To go through what we just went through and leave everyone disappointed the way we have, I take personal accountability for. It's the hardest stretch of my professional career because I know this team is better than that. We let our fans down. We let ourselves down. Derek Falvey. So what is he saying there? Is he saying the players let themselves down? I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I go back to is like, what do you think happened at the trade deadline? Do you think that the prices were just too high and they didn't want to make that plunge into, like, Eric Fedde? Obviously, the rumor was that they had offered Luke Keeschel, and I think that would have been a drastically preferable outcome to what ended up happening. Honestly, like, I try to put myself in Derek Falvey's position saying these things, and I think it was just he felt like he didn't supplement the team adequately, and he's just kind of falling on his sword. I think in some respects, he has to realize he couldn't control the health of Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, or the slumps of Royce Lewis, Ryan Jeffers, any number of guys who really faltered down the stretch. Willie Castro is another one. So I think this is mostly him saying, I would have liked to make a trade. I didn't feel good about the things that came across my desk or the messages, cell phone calls, et cetera, that came through for possible trades. I don't think he didn't make a trade well, he made a trade, but didn't make a significant trade for lack of effort. I think it was more along the lines of he probably had an idea of what he wanted to do, and it just didn't come together in a way that he felt comfortable with. And could you imagine, too, if he had made any certain trade that traded a significant prospect? I think Twins fans hug prospects probably a little more than the average fan base does. And the collapse still happened, because I don't know if adding Eric Fetty would have kept this team from collapsing. You know what I mean? I highly doubt it. And so in a way, it probably went about as good as could possibly be as far as a collapse. But I think he's just taking accountability.
There's definitely that part. He is taking accountability. But he also says, he literally says they take personal accountability. I know this team is better than that. We let our fans down. So he is, while he is falling on his own sword as far as
he's saying you guys can fall right behind me. There's enough weight on this sword.
Right, guys. We're all falling on our swords, right? Everybody, Royce.
Or
hello?
this one sword is really long. Just all of us fall on top of it until it's kind of like when you're figuring out pickup baseball game and you do your hands up the bat, and then the top is the guy who gets to pick first. They're all falling on the sword, and whoever's the last one, turn the lights off.
What's that called?
Oh, I don't know.
It should be. It's it's where you do this, but
it's got to have a name, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, now it's going to bother me. All right, I'm not going to let this take down the podcast any more than I would let any other part of minutia do that. But I've got to figure that out. It's like, hey, this is a very broad sword. Everyone's falling on it, right? Boys, are you with me? So yeah, that's Falvey down the stretch for sure. It's that leaves us with one more quote, which we're going to get to, which kind of sums up the entire season. And I bet people can kind of guess what it is at this point. Yeah. Maybe they even knew beforehand what the quote of the year was, but we will talk about that after our final commercial break.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Your team goes home and you still get the bonus, whether you're rooting for my Vikings or the Detroit Lions who just smoked them. Win or lose. It's the best deal to do postseason football, because you don't got to worry about that crushing defeat. FanDuel's app will give you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Again, win or lose, you are still going to get that $200 in bonus bets, and all it costs you is a little $5 bill. So visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Locked On Twins is reviewing the quotes of the year in Twins baseball as collected and collated by Dan Hayes of The Athletic. We've got 9 in the books. Let's go over them one more time. If you're late, get here next time, all right? All they're going to find in these veins is ice cream, bro. Royce Lewis talking about not having performance-enhancing drugs in his veins, but having performance-enhancing ice cream, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just want to be a body on the field. I want to be able to perform to the best of my abilities, like I've done this first half. That's Carlos Correa.
Could be any number of Twins.
It could be, but it was Carlos Correa in this case. Eventually, we'll have to switch out the sausage in order to avoid the health department knocking our door down. Rocco doesn't want another epidemic. Ryan Jeffers talking about the rally sausage and what that decrepit piece of meat meant to the Twins early on. It's the most challenging rehab I've ever had. I'll say that. I'm waiting for the call. This is more anticipation than my debut call. I'm waiting for the call to just go back out there and play. Royce Lewis talking about his latest rehab. Without a question, the television situation is having an impact on our business. But beyond that, we're also just trying to right-size our business. Joe Polad, some red meat for the people who can't stand how his family runs the team. I kind of liken myself to Mary Poppins. The kids know how to clean up their rooms and take their medicine. They don't need someone singing in the background to do it. Thad Levine. It sucks. We had every opportunity to put in front of We had every opportunity put in front of us to win that baseball game. Our season is on the line, and we weren't able to execute to get that run across. It's a really feeling, Ryan Jeffers. We've got a really good team, and we've done a pretty good job to this point. When you look around and see the other teams make, they weren't even impact moves, just something that pumps a little life into the clubhouse. It's kind of deflating, said an unnamed source. No name goes with that one. And then the ninth quote, I've never experienced the frustration, the anger, the disappointment, and the embarrassment that I have over the past 5 to 6 weeks. To go through what we just went through and to leave everyone disappointed the way we have, I take personal accountability for it. It's been the hardest stretch of my professional career because I know this team's better than that. We let our fans down. We let ourselves down. Derek Falvey.
Hey, I think I found a reference to what that's called when you do the bat thing.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't know, but they said knobbing up. That'd be a good nickname for it. I don't know.
Maybe. That's not what we called it. But I don't know if we called it anything.
Topsies, maybe?
First ups?
I don't know.
I don't remember. I have some sources. Knobbing up. I mean, that's, hey, whatever. Get you through the day, I guess.
Hey.
The quote of the year. Rocco Baldelli. That was an unprofessional series of baseball we played, and that's all I've got for you.
That's all I got to say about that. I think that's what Twins fans wanted to hear in like after every single loss is sometimes it's just like we're not built for this as Minnesota sports fans. Like even with the loss to the Lions, it's like they still finished 14-3 and everybody's like, what do we do? What do we do? You still doubled your predicted wins this season and still the sky is falling. Minnesota sports fans are not built for teams to either be winning and then have a struggle or just struggle in general. And so I think that's fans would have loved to hear this in like early August, and instead they got it right down the stretch.
Well, I mean, it works as both kind of like a finale, like this is the last thing I'm ever going to say, and also a Hail Mary. There was a little bit of time left in the season, I believe, that if somehow a miracle would have happened, the Twins were still playoff viable if, 8 things happened. So it was Rocco throwing a bomb. That's not something he's going to say in July, even if they do have a series like that, because they've got another series coming up and he doesn't necessarily want to throw good money after bad by blowing things up even worse. So, I mean, that's a late season. I've got nothing left. Let's just see if this sticks, kind of a flamethrower. And, but I mean, like you said, Brandon, maybe it felt a little cathartic for fans to hear that, but it was, I mean, he wasn't wrong either. I mean, they really, not only did they struggle down the stretch, they pooped the bed a couple times. That series was a bed pooper.
The Marlins series was especially bad too, when they had everything to lose and the Marlins had nothing but draft position or draft lottery position to play for. And
the players don't care about that either.
Right. And what did they drop? Did they drop 2 or 3 in that series? I can't remember for sure. And then the only other time that I thought maybe, they had a really rough end of the first half. I think San Francisco won a game with did Conforto hit a triple and then the overthrow scored him or something? It was a really ugly end to, it might have been the last game of the first half. Like I could see maybe something like that, but yeah, down the stretch, at least at mid-season, like you didn't really know how bad it was going to get. And then, down the stretch, it was just some of the worst baseball I've ever watched. And mind you, the first year I watched the Twins was 1993.
Right. I think I remember Frank Thomas hitting a home run off Eddie Cardano that year. That's still coming down. It was that far.
Yeah, the Metrodome went down before the ball did.
So, all right, that's a good place to end.
Yes,
that's definitely the quote of the year. We can't top that, so why try?
No.
For Brandon Warren, this is Dave Brown. You've been watching the Parsing the Twins Quotes of the Year, Part 2. Rocco Baldelli wins Quote of the Year. Unprofessional baseball. Put it on a T-shirt. For Brandon, I'm Dave. wishing you all a very pleasant good evening and saying we will see ya
tomorrow night.
tomorrow